a little bit
Yeah,
about it.
I had never been, and what a beautiful country. I had a wonderful time. I stayed, the first time I stayed in El Zonte, and the second time I
Hmm.
stayed in San Salvador. And amazing people, amazing food, amazing surf. I surfed for the very first time.
Oh, really?
And yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting. It was almost a year ago last year that I went for the first time.
Mhm.
And there are so many misconceptions about El Salvador. Like when I told some of my friends that I was going, the first question I got is, "Oh my gosh, are you going to be safe? Why are you
They are
going? Are
afraid.
you going to be okay?" And and people were surprised when I was posting the actual hotel, because I was staying at the same place as Max and Stacy. They were also
Hmm.
posting where they were, and I never felt like I was in danger at all. In fact, the very opposite. I felt like it was very safe with very kind people, and it was
Hmm.
really inspiring to see this circular economy where everyone is familiar with Bitcoin. They transact in Bitcoin. They ask for Bitcoin, and I have a lot of hope that this will bring not only change and opportunity, but also investment into the country where people don't have to leave. I heard a lot of stories from the Salvadorians that I met that they had to, leave
Hmm.
and send money back. And now they're focusing on staying and building within their communities. And if they leave, they eventually want to, come back.
Wanna
So
come back?
I thought it was a really a wonderful place. I'd love to go back soon.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Mr. Bukele to sit down for a formal interview. I got to meet with him. I got to sit down and do a talk with him, but we haven't
Hmm.
sat down for an official
Was
interview.
he?
So I hope that happens as well, because I would love to hear about his plans and his background and the Bitcoin bonds and all of that. But we got to talk a little bit in his office, and it was really interesting. I mean, he was a businessman before, and he's been in Bitcoin since about the year I've been in it, since 2017. So a lot of
Hmm.
people don't know his backstory, and I would love to share it.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you that if you have if you made an interview to him, was he approachable? How was like very
Yes,
approachable.
very, very approachable, very kind. I got to visit him in his office and just sit down and introduce myself. And I
Hmm.
formally sort of requested to sit down with him, in an interview eventually. But
Yeah.
the timing was not really on my side, because if you can actually remember, right after that, not only did everything cascade down with the price with Bitcoin, but also a lot of
Hmm.
the violence broke out. So he's obviously
Hmm.
been very, very busy.
Hmm.
But I would love to sit down with him. I find him to be really interesting because he really is tackling issues as a leader in such a different way, right? I mean, this is a currency he's adopting that he can never manipulate, control, inflate. He can never have any say in what happens ultimately with Bitcoin. And I think that his journey to discovering it, learning about it, he's read the book, like the Bitcoin Standard. It's really fascinating. And for so long, a lot of people in El Salvador, they didn't see hope. They didn't see a way
Yeah.
forward that was safe and prosperous. And now things are changing. And everyone that I talked to in the country was very pro Bukele and some of the things that they've been seeing. So at the same time, I'm not someone who believes that we should have heroes in, political leaders necessarily, because
Yeah.
we don't always know someone's agenda long term. And I think
Exactly.
sometimes, our heroes can really disappoint us. But I also think that this is revolutionary and very progressive of him to adopt Bitcoin. So I'm curious to see what will happen, especially when we're in the next bull market.
Yeah, exactly. So one last question about El Salvador. What do you like the most? Coffee? How would you try pupusas?
Oh, the coffee was great. I did have pupusas.
Mm.
I loved the hotel that we stayed at in El Zonte. And
Garden El Santos, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, Garden
Mhm.
Hotel. Yeah.
Mhm. Garden.
They had great food, and I got to surf, and I've never surfed before. And it was so beautiful. The water is warm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's warm, exactly.
I I lived in California for so long, and like the Pacific is beautiful, but it's so cold. It was always too cold for me to surf. So El Salvador is beautiful, and the sunset. I will never forget the sunsets that I saw from that El Zonte
Oh.
beach. It was so beautiful, and the people are amazing. So I can't wait to go back.